Hi, Matthew Engel, Steve Watts, Watson Associates. Great to be with
Hello,
you today.
Matthew. Yep.
Hi, Steve. Okay, so Steve, one of the questions to get asked all the time on open houses, hey, where are the sellers moving? And so, and we have some sellers, they do all kinds of things. But it got me thinking, especially for our sellers that do move out of state, you sold a lot of homes in your career. How many people do you think actually move out of state of your sellers?
Well, that's a great question. It's surely changed, a lot of it from the pandemic as well. And so I went back and did some research, and I'm actually going to spend a little time because I think it's pretty fascinating. Are people staying locally? Are they moving out of state? And the answer is, I'll bet you 40% of our sales have left the state. Boise, Idaho, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Texas, significant draw, Idaho, Utah, and of course Florida because of the tax base as well. So let me just read a little bit of this. And this is pretty fascinating because this is documented information from the Census Bureau and the National Association of Realtors. The U.S. population grew only 0.1%, and it's the lowest growth rate since our nation was founded. So we're not growing and as a nation. Number two, 1/3 of the states saw population decline in 2021. What were those states? Those states that showed decline were California, Illinois, New York, D.C., and Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
So one of the factors that we're starting to see is where people going, and this is the number one migrating states, people moving to that are going into Sarasota, Florida, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, Florida, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando, Florida, and Phoenix, Arizona. And some of this is tracked by Redfin, which does a lot of research statistically. And then they went in and did the research, the United Van Lines, who could be better because people are going to use...
Moving.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And states people are moving to: Vermont, South Dakota, South Carolina, West Virginia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Oregon, Idaho, and Rhode Island. So then they went in deeper, and it says the states that people are leaving. And I think we touched on it briefly.
Yeah.
New Jersey, Illinois, New York, Connecticut, California, Michigan, probably because it's cold, although they got a great football team.
That's right.
And I think they're playing in the new BCS Bowl
Yeah.
against Ohio. Sidebar, sorry.
Yeah.
Massachusetts, Louisiana, Ohio, and Nebraska. These are the states that people are leaving, and clearly California is there.
Yeah. So these national trends we're feeling in our own market.
Correct.
Yeah.
And part of it is the tax base that is driving people out of the state of California, which is challenging. So the other factor that we're starting to see is my age. I'm going to be 70 years old. I'm a baby boomer, and they are now projecting that baby boomers are going to be stay in place and not sell. And we make up 38% of the population.
Interesting.
So the baby boomers, as they age, they're not going to come to market with their homes. They're going to retire, stay in place, and live out their years. They're trying to avoid going into senior housing, etc. So I want to stay in my home, and I want to live out my years there, which means there's going to be less inventory in these communities where there's a higher income, older people being able to live there. And I thought that was fascinating as well. It then went into, which was interesting, what is the trend on making Americans be able to move? And this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
The number one is technology. So the adaptation of technology has allowed people to move. The purchasing power, you can leave California and get your $2 million home sale or your $1 million home sale, and you can buy a beautiful home, big homes in some of these other states.
Yeah, Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho is an example. We now have dual income earners. It's harder to move when both people are ensconced in their jobs. And then the population is aging, so older people have a tendency to move less. So this whole change in influx of the market is going to be fascinating over the next 2 to 3 years to see what the trends are.
Yeah, with supply already restricted, and now you have a population who historically maybe would sell and cash out or move to a Florida or somewhere warm, and now maybe
That
we're
inventory is
saying
not coming available.
It's not coming available. Even tighter restriction on it, the inventory.
So in my 40 years of doing this, we have had as much as 800 homes in the market for sale. And I think I last looked last week. And when I talk about that, again, I got to be specific. That's the Palos Verdes Peninsula.
Yeah.
There's 86 on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, and with a population of about 82,000 people. So
Yeah.
there's very little inventory, and we've been that way for quite some time. So, you know, the move out, the change, it's pretty fascinating.
Do you think? How do you think that's going to affect the market moving forward the next
Well,
5 years?
The great thing is, even with inflation and the rising interest rates,
Yep.
because of the simple principle, supply and demand, there's no supply, there's still high demand. It's going to keep values somewhat inflated, which is great.
Yeah.
But when we start to see inventory come and there's choices, we'll probably get a correction in the market.
Cool.
There you go.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.